Hi, this is Cathy for Trans by Deaf, and this week we're talking about detransition. Colette was one of our hosts that suggested this topic, and it was based on a young lady who was detransitioning on YouTube. When you watch the young lady's videos, you realize very quickly that she was forced to quit taking hormones, but she still felt like she was a woman inside. And so I would like to address some of the topics that go along with this. The other things that we were asked to discuss is, could you detransition, and what are your thoughts about detransitioning? I have thought a lot about this ever since I read Colette's topic, and this is a very difficult topic for me to address. The reason that this topic is so difficult for me to address is when I was 22 years old and in college, I tried to transition to become a woman. I was told by my mother that if I transitioned, I would be kicked out of the house. I was told by my employer that I would be fired, and I was told by the university I was attending that I was no longer going to be allowed to be in the department which I was studying. And after about a week or two, a week and a half, 2 weeks, I detransitioned and went back to being a man in outward appearance. With that as a background, I would like to say from the time when I was 22 until I was 58, I lived in that mode of being two people. I always have felt inside that I was a woman, and I was always forced when around my family and around my employer to be a man. I cannot express the amount of joy that I had when at age 58 I was able to transition to present in the workplace and present full-time as a woman. And I have enjoyed every minute that I have been a woman. With that in mind, I would like to take on the first question. Could you detransition? This is a question of the whole group that is very difficult for me. After living for some 38 or 39 years in this mode of going back and forth between being a man in the workplace, a man at home, and being in the closet as a woman, I don't think it would be difficult for me at all to put on my masculine clothes, put on my man clothes, and bind up my chest, have a haircut that was suitable for a man, and go out as a man. There have been times since I transitioned where I had to be to present as a man, and I have had no trouble in modifying my hair to at least pass as a man and going out that way. Now, some of the down experience I've had with having to go back and be a man for short periods of time is that I go through a great depression when I am forced to be a man for any period of time. The depression that I undergo is just huge. It is within 2 to 3 to 5 hours, I get to the same point very quickly that forced me to go to my wife in the first place and say, if I don't transition, I will commit suicide. So I am forced to transition to be what I am inside. And I feel that it is not realistic for me to even consider the idea of detransition or going back to being my male self and my male role. I may have to do it sometimes because of circumstances that are around me. One part of the question is, what would drive you to detransition? There are only two things that I can think of in this world that would drive me there. The first is if my wife said that if I didn't, she would leave me. And the second is if my employer said that he was going to fire me, I would probably have to transition then. Detransition and go back to being a man. I would not like it, and the amount of depression I would suffer would probably take me very close to the suicide line again, which I don't want to even go near. So those are my feelings about could I go back and become a man again and detransition. The answer is no. Would I even consider it or want to? The answer is no and no and no. I am very happy being a woman, presenting as a woman, acting as a woman, and doing the things that women normally do. And I believe that detransition is not a possibility. The amount of depression prevents that detransition, and the amount of joy on the other side generates so much of a good feeling in me that I don't want to lose that good feeling that I have since I transitioned to be the woman that I always have been. I'd like to also address some other interesting points around the young lady who was required to go off her hormones. 2 years ago, when I was involved in a serious accident and had to spend an extended period of time in the hospital in intensive care ward because of a crushed shoulder and broken leg and other internal injuries, the doctors were required to remove the dose of estrogen I was taking and the dose of testosterone that I was taking. It is hard to explain to you who have never had that experience what it is like. It is like they have removed the part of you that makes you complete. Again, a year ago, or last November, I had to go in for additional shoulder surgery because of the accident, and again they took away my hormones, and again I suffered that same negative experience and negative feeling. You feel like you're not yourself, you're not on your game, you feel so off and uneasy and so down all the time that I can still remember in November when I was allowed to take my hormones again. Within 3 days I could feel the effects of the estrogen and the spiral on restoring me to the woman that I was. And I can really feel for this young lady who was required to stop taking her estrogen and her hormones because she is going through that. If you go back and you review the videos of most of the people who are going for SRS, you will find that before they have their SRS, they are required to quit taking their hormones, and you will hear just about every one of those people make a comment of the negative feeling and negative effects that surround the removal of your estrogen and your spiral in order to have SRS surgery. And having been through that now twice, particularly the first time when I was so hurt and in intensive care, I still think I would have been better off emotionally having that estrogen in there to buoy me up and make me feel like the woman that I am, rather than being without any of it. I do understand why the doctors did it, but I think that is something that since none of you have experienced that, can really need to relate to and need to think about what this young lady is going through. Well, are there any other thoughts that I have about detransition? Well, to wind this thing up, my feeling about detransition is I could never do it. I could never go that way. I, in a very short time, presenting as a man, would become as depressed as I was before I transitioned for this final time to become the woman that I am. And I do not want to go through that again. I have at times had to go and temporarily transition to be a man, to take care of a business that had to be taken care of, or to do something that had to be done in a certain way. And in every time I have found that as a very negative experience. Well, those are my comments on detransition. If you would like to ask a question or make a comment, please use the box below. And I hope to see you again next week. Bye.